Good evening. Welcome to the Town Hall meeting of May the 5th for the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners. And I'm going to call the roll. Commissioner Rutledge.
Here.
Commissioner Chismar.
Here.
Commissioner Taylor.
Here.
And Commissioner Chance could not be with us this evening. So if you will all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion of this evening's agenda? All right, Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For approval of this evening's agenda, May 5th, 2025, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Tonight's agenda is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. And next, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, I move that the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meetings held on April 15th, 2025, April 21, 2025, and April 24, 2025 be approved as submitted, including minutes for the following meetings. April 15th, 2025, Commissioners' Budget Work Session Open Meeting. April 15th, 2025, Commission's Budget Work Session Closed Meeting. April 21, 2025, Commissioners' Town Hall Meeting. And April 24, 2025, Commissioners' Budget Work Session Meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion of the minutes? All right, Mr. Krantz?
For approval of the minutes of April 5th, April 21st, and April 24th, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Abstain, I wasn't here for either of those meetings.
understood, Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, we have the public hearing on Resolution 1251-25, the Town of Bel Air fee schedule amendments. So at 7:02, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to address just this piece of legislation regarding the fee schedule for the Town of Bel Air? All right, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing at 7:02 as well and move on to unfinished business. Resolution 1251-25, the Town of Bel Air fee schedule amendments. May I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move the resolution 125125, amending the town's fee schedule, be approved by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Commissioner Chismar, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Anything you would like to tell us?
Would you like me to go over a quick review?
Very quick review,
Okay.
just for those who might be watching at home.
Resolution 125125 is some small amendments to the Bel Air fee schedule. They include amending the traffic impact analysis, the determination of scope fees, and the review of study fees. Essentially, it's just moving some of those monies around within the same one to add the TIA review of study at $1,000 and to add the determination of scope at $250. The previous price was $900, and the review needed to be inserted first. In addition, we're going to add document recording fees regarding land records for Harford County and the Harford County Department of Finance. The town essentially shall collect and remit all those fees, surcharges, or other charges as required by Harford County for the recording of such documents, and the fees are established from time to time by the county and are collected on behalf of them by the town. Examples of those fees are such as like a $40 surcharge fee for documents, $20 recording fee for 9 pages or less, $75 recording fee for 10 pages or more, and so on. And those are found on the Harford County Land Records website. And the staff recommends that 125125 for approval by the Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. I know we discussed this quite a bit. It's really two changes. One is an addition, and one is splitting the fee into two separate sections because of the way that business is being conducted. And both of these are generally going to be paid by some entity that is coming in to do some sort of a development work in the town. And the costs, as far as the recordation costs, are simply pass-throughs. The the state and the county require certain fees to be paid when you record certain documents, and we are just amending our code to include those so they're covered by the entity that's doing the work.
I saw some questions about this as well, and I think you summed it up quite nicely. These are essentially either pass-through fees that we have to collect, otherwise the taxpayer will bear the difference, or these are fees that are currently being borne by taxpayers that are now being shifted to folks who are looking to do development work in the town. So our choices between those incurring the cost or the taxpayers, I think this is the prudent choice for the taxpayer in Bel Air.
I agree. Any further discussion of this? No? All right. Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for approval of Resolution 125125. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Thank you.
Thank you. And under new business, first we have ordinance 841-25, indoor shooting range. May I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that ordinance 841-25, revising Town Code, Chapter 165, Article 7, Performance Standards, Article 14, Definitions and Table 3.1, Permitted Use Tables relating to shooting ranges be received by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
All right. And Commissioner Taylor, are you going to present this?
Sure, absolutely. I'll give the 50,000 foot, and then Director Small can fill in all the planning language. But essentially, this is to permit indoor shooting ranges in the B3 and B3A areas with setbacks for child care centers, schools, and churches. This arose from a space which, as I understand it, is still vacant on Baltimore Pike, where someone had looked to put an indoor shooting range, and our staff found that they are currently prohibited by town code because they are not permitted by town code. And so we set out to look for where the most responsible place to permit this use would be, and saw that that was clearly in the B3 and B3A areas with the necessary setbacks. And so we're looking really to get in line with surrounding jurisdictions that permit this use where responsible and applicable. So that was my impetus for coming forward with the legislation, and I'll let Director Small add in the color commentary as he sees fit.
Some of the details requires a setback again from schools, churches, and childcare. No loaded firearms are allowed outside of the building. No alcohol or controlled substances. A plan to address security, safety, noise, storage of firearms, and the environmental impacts must be submitted by any entity who is wishing to establish this use. And allowance of the Board of Appeals to address other issues such as hours of operation, number of and qualifications of employees, and the size of the establishment. One last thing is that this did go in front of the Planning Commission on Thursday. They recommended approval with one suggestion, which was to increase the distance from 300 feet to 500 feet from churches, schools, and childcare.
I have taken a look at this, and I do have some questions. Why did they think it should be 500 feet, the Planning Commission, rather than 300 feet? Did they?
I think they just had concerns about the use, having firearms, that it needed to be further away from schools, especially schools, and wanted to add some more distance to it. They're kind of just a general concern for safety.
Okay. And I was also
And
wondering.
I think they got that number from how we treat cannabis.
Yeah.
I think that's where that
Okay.
number came from.
Yes,
Different
they wanted
risks,
to go
like
with cannabis or
Cannabis,
liquor source.
okay. And my other question was why 300 or 500 feet from childcare, schools, churches, but 100 feet from an R district property? I mean, to me,
These-
the concern with a firing range is only if, a bullet leaves the premises. And that should never happen, but I understand we're addressing that with a setback requirement. But why a different one for a residential area than schools, churches?
When this was constructed, it was done to match what we do for amusement centers.
Okay.
Amusement centers are 300 feet and 100 feet. One difference there is that the 100 feet is from property line to property line, whereas the 300 feet is from building to building.
Okay. And my other question is, I'm trying to find where we draw the line between what we require by statute and what is a business practice by the gun range. No loaded firearms outside the building. Law enforcement, people with a carry permit issued by the state of Maryland. I know that there's been some changes recently because of that change in the law, like gun clubs have rewritten their rules to permit those that have a wear and carry permit and those that are law enforcement to carry their guns into the facility, whereas often they have a business rule that you cannot do that. You can't wear one on your hip, you have to carry it in a locked box. I'm not sure if they require it to be unloaded or not. So to me, I want to stay on the side of what we should do by statute and stay away from what they should be doing as their own business practices. And another one that I see is they're going to set what the qualifications are for the attendants in the building. I'm not sure if the Planning Commission is an expert in this area to say what kind of criteria they have to meet as far as training for the attendants or how many attendants.
I will take the first one,
Okay.
which is that we drew the language regarding, and the specific language is that adequate measures must be taken to ensure that no loaded firearms will be brought into or taken out of the building. That's taken directly from Hartford County Code.
Okay.
So we took that, I sat down with the chief and with Kevin, and we felt as though that was a reasonable regulation. As far as the qualification of the attendants, Chief, would you be able to speak more to that? Because I know that came from your research.
Well,
I'd
and just
be
to,
fine with the chief
Yeah.
determining the qualifications, but he's
Yes,
not on the
ma'am.
planning board.
So I did a little extra research afterwards, and I contacted an owner of a indoor gun range down in Baltimore County. And as far as allowing people to come in, I think you made a reference to permits and such. Now, none of us could find there, and she even admitted there's very little legislation concerning regulation of an indoor gun range. But what she did say is, they've developed some of their own rules and regulations. They've even got waivers and things like that, because really the overriding factor is insurance. They've got to have this stuff to be able to open up, to be covered by insurance for things that mishaps that could happen there. But as far as permits, having a permit, they really still abide by the rule of you have to go in with an unloaded and come out with an unloaded. Now, if you're law enforcement, retired or current, they will allow for that. They will allow you to come in.
But here we're
Um,
writing into law that if
yes.
you show up and
Yes,
you have a loaded weapon, we are by statute saying you cannot do that, even if you are active or retired law enforcement or have a wear and carry permit in the state of Maryland.
well, I think there's some wiggle room there because, it's the same for them down there. So, if you're law enforcement, they get to know you, you're going to be okay. But if you, the same rules, our legislation is going to apply to those people that aren't law enforcement and go in, that have permits and such. They're still going to have it unloaded and go out with it unloaded. Most people are going to go in with it unloaded and out with it unloaded.
Right, but I'm concerned about those
Right.
people that this is going to encourage to unload in the car or in the parking lot,
And that's
which is
still,
not, which
yeah.
is not wise.
Right, but that's still their basic rule. If our law says it, then that's what we've got to abide by. So does that make sense to you?
It does. I'm certainly not opposed to passing an ordinance that permits indoor shooting ranges in the town. What I'm not 100% on board with is some of these things that are in the statute. My concern from a statutory perspective would be noise, projectiles leaving the building. I cannot imagine. I mean, they have to build those to a certain specification, and then they only allow certain types of firearms in there based on what their building can handle.
Right.
But noise and lead, although really, they're not even probably environmentally as concerning as dry cleaners is, so, and it's inside.
They have to supply good, proper ventilation for
Right.
the lead and so forth
Right,
like that.
right.
And again, they're governed, a lot of them are governed by their insurance companies, and I'm
Yes,
sure
as
that it's
well
very
as
strict. Yeah,
many
yeah.
state and federal regulations as far as prohibited persons, and they do instant checks and, you know.
Well, they don't do those there. They're not going to do instant checks for
Okay.
those. They're not permitted, she told me that. They're not permitted to do instant checks, and again, it's about insurance coverage, you know, and they're liable for something that goes wrong there. So that's why they have very stringent rules, they have waivers. You know, if somebody comes in there, they look like they're under the influence, or they smell cannabis, you're out.
I know.
You know,
They're
they're
very
just not-
strict
they're not gonna
because
allow it,
it's a
yeah.
big safety concern.
Yeah.
And I have personally never seen anybody walk in with a gun that wasn't in a case and unloaded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. And it was kind of, it was not humorous, but we were questioning, why isn't there legislation? But again, it looks like civilly, there's a
Mhm.
lot of liability there, so they need a lot of insurance.
Yeah, and I misspoke. It's the Board of Appeals, not the Planning Commission, that's going to talk about the qualifications of the adult attendants. I'm just not sure that is something that, if I were on the Board of Appeals, would feel comfortable making a ruling on that. I wouldn't know enough to say who was qualified and who wasn't.
I think what'll likely happen is if anybody coming in is asking for a shooting range, someone from the Bel Air Police Department, whether it be the chief or the deputy chief, would be in attendance to be able to answer any questions they may have.
Well, the ordinance also indicates that there has to be a safety plan. So that can be part of the safety plan. Those things can. We can delve further into it from that point when we look at their safety plan, when we're approving it. And that's kind of what some of our correspondence was about, that the details, the fine details that we want, you know, like make sure you have a waiver, make sure you have some of these signs, 'cause she sent us all the signs that's posted. It kind of gave us a floor plan, a roadmap, if you will, of things that we should ask for in the safety plan, and that's, Kevin mentions that in the, and Commissioner Taylor mentioned that in the ordinance, that they have to have a safety plan.
The reason why we included that word qualifications and put it where we did in the guidelines section as opposed to the performance standards section is exactly what the chief just said, and to another degree what Director Small just said. We expect that if someone comes in and when they submit their plan, there's going to be a great deal of communication between the planning department, the police department, and then finally, once it gets before the Board of Appeals, understanding that the expertise for this does lie with the BAPD. And so that's why there's no set performance standard in terms of what qualifications you have to have, just that some degree of qualified instructor or other can be imposed if it makes sense in the plan.
And I would be very comfortable with the chief or the deputy chief evaluating that portion of the plan. I just know if I were on the Board of Appeals, and I would be, you know, not qualified to determine what sort of credentials you needed, because there are all sorts of credentials, and there are, you know, you could have 20 years of experience as a law enforcement officer and have worked at the range, and I think you'd be very well qualified, but there are other qualifications as well, so I wouldn't want to be the person reviewing that, but I'd be very comfortable with the chief.
That wouldn't be a problem, and, you know, we could even have our firearm instructors who are more qualified than myself and the deputy chief to do that. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Could I also add that isn't, with regards to loaded firearms outside of the building, I don't think there's absolutely no intent of this to infringe upon the rights of somebody with a concealed carry, but sometimes people bring in multiple firearms. You know, you wouldn't, their concealed carry, I don't think, is the intent of this particular language. It's the, you know, the long guns, what might be 2 or 3 other guns that they bring in with them, those should all be unloaded and stored appropriately prior to entering the building,
I think she's making reference that if somebody has a concealed carry and they feel obligated to unload before they go in
Correct.
and out,
Or
that's
as
where.
a current, you know,
Yeah.
Many police officers are very reluctant to walk around without their loaded gun. It's like a part of their body,
Yep.
and they're, you know, it's just like my
Right.
cell phone, you know, I don't go out without it. A lot of police officers do not go out without their gun loaded and worn in a holster, whether they're in uniform or not. And by the plain language of this, they wouldn't be permitted to do that.
Well, I mean, we can maybe add some clarification in the safety plan.
I think
Well-
we might need to clarify. I
It-
think
it-
I'm going to think about this, but that's like really the only kind of issues I have with it is
Right.
the details. And the rules have probably changed since the county may have passed theirs, because that suit from the Supreme Court was just a couple of years ago. And Maryland has been, struggling with like.
It's still
implementing-
unclear, I mean, to me,
Well-
as to, certain places, and they're creating these zones where you can't take a firearm. which
Right, and
is-
I think that has
I
been
won't-
held
yeah.
up. I didn't follow
Yeah,
enough what the
I-
Fourth Circuit did with that, but you're right, they had passed that.
I
and
don't
I
care
think
for it, to be honest with you.
There was an
so.
injunction, I don't either, because it
Yeah.
makes it very difficult. You have to like cross the street,
Right.
when you're in front of some building, and then you can't be in
Yeah.
front of that building. I think it was intentional to try to make it
Oh,
more
absolutely.
difficult for anybody to comply than.
It's intentional to nullify the Constitution and to work
Right.
around it. I don't think
Right.
I
My
don't care
personal
for it.
opinion, so, at any rate, that's the thing that I don't want to do. I don't want to, if you have a legal right as a law enforcement officer, or you have a wear and carry permit, then you have it in that parking lot. I don't think we actually have the ability to say no to that. A business can have whatever business
Yep.
rules they want, and they can certainly say, like private business can say no guns allowed, period, whether you're a police officer or not. And the gun ranges are all very, very careful about, they don't want anybody coming in with a loaded gun. But I did see that, I think it's Guntree, says that if you have a wear and carry permit or you're law enforcement,
Mhm.
that you can come in. And they used to have like, you couldn't have it on, you couldn't draw from a holster. And many of them are changing that to law enforcement. And if you have a wear and carry permit, you can. So, some things are a little bit in flux. And that was the only thing that, really sort of stood out to me as a concern. I mean, the gun ranges are generally not much trouble because they want to continue to be in business.
Right.
Madam Chair, if I could follow up on your comments. First of all, number one, I don't have any problem with 300 feet. I think that's plenty of a distance. The whole function of the shooting range is an entirely different thing than people buying and smoking pot. I just don't see any comparison whatsoever, and I don't buy it. Think it's, doesn't make sense to me. I like the 300 feet. As far as the performance standard, adequate measures must be taken to ensure that no loaded firearms be brought into and taken out of the building. I don't think that belongs in the performance standards at all, for all the reasons that you've just pointed out, Madam Chair. I think it's totally a business liability thing, and I don't think we need to be able to revoke somebody's ability to conduct a business because somebody, some customer violates that. I don't want to go down that road. I don't want to give anybody an inch that wants to deprive us of a right to bear arms at all. Whatever advocacy group is out there, whoever they are, I think that Bel Air ought to stand robustly for the Second Amendment. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's where I stand on it, and I think that needs to be deleted from the performance standards. As to the guidelines on number and qualifications of adult attendance, the problem I have there, Commissioner Taylor, with that language is the fact that there are some people that just work a cash register. They don't go back on the line. So are they an attendant? So, that's the problem, defining these terms. They wouldn't, a person just working the cash register, what qualifications do they need?
I don't think they'd need any, and I don't think any reasonable person would impose any.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so we need a
I
better
think
definition of
that
attendant.
there's a
then.
difference between, sure, I think there's a difference between, is the only person who's there the person at the cash register? That's a problem, and that wouldn't happen, right? Or, do you have someone who's in charge, in the back, and you've got someone at the cash register, and those are two different things.
I mean, are we getting into, how many range bosses they have?
So I will.
How many range bosses are normally in? I'm just common sense.
No, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know what your experience is with it, but mine, is pretty robust. And a lot of times it's one range boss, and sometimes none.
Well, I'm with
That
you.
can float in and out. If you got, when I go to the range and I'm the only guy, they're all open, and they know me and they say, fine, I go on, somebody may or may not be actually on the range with me.
I'm definitely with you, Commissioner Rutledge, on the Second Amendment, but checking into some of these ranges, there's been some things that have happened. They're not totally free of incidents. In fact, the owner that I spoke to in Baltimore County said that there's been 3 suicides at hers, and several at all the others. So I would feel comfortable with somebody that's qualified and keeping a close eye on what's going on in there, rather than just somebody behind the cash register. So that's where I'm coming
Well,
from
this is
that.
what I'm asking, Chief. If you have a business and you hire a person only to be on the cash register, and you have
Mhm.
somebody else who's the range boss, I'm saying I don't want to be in a position of allowing the Board of Appeals to say, I want to check out the qualifications of the
Right.
cashier.
Right.
What I'm thinking is, you know, if they just want to make sure that there's going to be, you know, adequate cover, you know, of the use of the
Mhm.
firearms, that would be fine. But I don't want to pass, I don't want
Pass on
to give
making
the
them
Board of Appeals the
would.
power to deny somebody a job as working as a cashier.
Right,
It has
right.
nothing to do with the firing range.
Would inserting the phrase responsible for for the safety of the facility, the attendants responsible for the safety of the facility, mollify your concerns? I mean, how would you phrase? Because
Yeah.
I'm willing to massage the language, absolutely, and I'm willing to. I think the mayor's brought up a very legitimate concern as well.
Yeah.
And you
Just-
see where I'm coming from, right, as far as
Oh,
that?
I
Yeah.
do,
Right.
but, although I'm very sympathetic about,
Mhm.
you know, suicide but, there's no way you can prevent people. Well, look what happens at the parking garage.
Right.
What are we gonna do, shut it
Right.
down
I
because
get it.
somebody climbs
Yep.
up and jumps off? You know, somebody in a heartbeat can take a gun and turn it on themselves and use it. And I don't think there's any human power that can predict, oh, I sense that person is getting ready to do the unthinkable. No one can do that.
Mhm.
No one. Now, if somebody walks in and they're trash or they're smelling like pot and they're
Mhm.
boozed up or something, they're out of there. If somebody comes in and they're talking, I am the king of London, and it's absolutely, you know, that's my experiences down at Spring Grove. It's yeah, but just you know the people, somebody who just goes out there, and that otherwise looks perfectly fine. It's like the people who were jumpers at the subway or the train station. They 1 minute they seemed absolutely fine, and the next minute they just jumped. I don't know what we can do about that, and although
What is the, where's the, where does the disagreement lie? I don't have it in front of me.
You were
so I just
commenting
want-
upon
yeah.
the Second Amendment
Yeah.
rights with
Mhm.
regard to, but we do have incidences. Of course we do.
Yes.
And to me, you know, these incidences are the price of freedom. And
Where's the statement of conflict in the law that,
yeah.
because I'm not totally
This is
understanding.
under, Chief, the
Yes, ma'am.
guidelines where it says the Board of Appeals may impose such conditions, one of which is the number and qualifications of adult attendants required to be on the premises at all times
I
of
got you, okay,
operation.
all right.
Yeah, and I'm just
Yeah.
sorting out the kind of,
Right.
you know, certainly there should be someone who, you know, at all times, you know, that there be a responsible party, but I don't want the Board of Appeals saying you gotta have 3 range masters on it just
Right.
because we end up with the Board of Appeals with people that wanna outlaw the gun culture and think that the gun culture is some kind of a, you know, wicked idea in the American fiber of society, like the people that were protesting on May Day. You know, they would love to just rip the whole thing out. And so I'm saying no. I'm saying no. No to that. I'm saying the Second Amendment's a darn good thing. It's part of the American fiber. And so I hesitate to give the Board of Appeals too much authority to start nitpicking how many people and number of qualifications, rather than that they could make sure that there is going to be a responsible and qualified individual
Right,
on site
right.
in charge of the facility at all times. And leave it to the business people to do the rest, rather than they get to pick out the number. Then, because then our board, if we ended up with a Board of Appeals that was anti-Second Amendment, they could shut these things down, period, just by saying, you need 3 highly qualified range masters at all time, that the doors are open, and just economically shut them down. That would be,
I agree with that. Maybe we could put that in the safety plan too, that
That's what I was
qualifications.
going to say. Why do we even have that paragraph under guidelines when, wouldn't the number, because be included in the safety and security plan? The
Right.
number and qualifications of the people. But again, that is also approved by the Board of Appeals. But I'm assuming, because that's under the paragraph E, subparagraph E under performance.
Yeah,
right here.
performance, yeah, certainly. Security, safety.
So that would be included in all that, and I would assume that the police department would have a heavy say
Yes, sir.
in those procedures and the number of people that you think are necessary for the number of lines that are going to be in there for shooting, the shooting lanes and whatever. You know, if they have 3, you know, that's one. If they have 30, that's another set. And if they're in different sectors of the building, subdivided, that's, I think, is something that be best left up to the professionals.
right.
Because it's a very specific use here. And I think, in the town, I think the police department is probably is the only, in my opinion,
We'll keep
voice
a,
that-
we'll
that
keep a
has the-
close eye
has
on
the-
it, yeah.
the knowledge and all to
Right.
be able to set that,
Yep.
and the expertise, so.
And again, from the conversation that I had with the chief, that has always been the posture that we've taken about why all of this is in here, is that the department will have very heavy hand. Now, I understand, Commissioner Rutledge, your concerns about the folks that we have on the folks that we could have on the Board of Appeals, because I don't think that the current Board of Appeals is of that mindset, and I know I certainly wouldn't vote to confirm someone to the Board of Appeals whose position was that we should, you know, stretch the law to ban things that we don't like. And part of that is our confirmation power for the Board of Appeals to ensure that, you know, you've got folks who will faithfully execute the law. But I'm absolutely willing to massage this language to make it tighter. If you have suggested wording changes, I'd very much be open to hearing them.
Well,
If you want to roll it into the detailed security plan, I think that would be okay, because that's something that is getting by the department.
I think it's covered, Commissioner Taylor, just the security safety plan in section 1E is adequate. I don't think we need, I think we could, I don't think
Are
we
you
need to
comfortable with
massage
that?
the
Sure.
language. I'm
Okay.
just saying, delete 2A2, boom,
Right.
strike it, and strike the adequate measures be taken to ensure no loaded firearms be brought into or taken out of the building, and leave it at 300 feet.
Yeah, I think as far as, I'm fine with
Right.
striking the adequate measures, the 1B as well. I think state law would probably preempt the code anyway, but I'm comfortable taking that out just to avoid any challenge.
Yeah.
Also,
Good.
keep in mind, it's Board of Appeals, it's not Planning Commission. So Board of Appeals is quasi judicial. On the record, the applicant puts their case on, and then the town puts its case on. So in the case of something this highly technical, I would insist that Bel Air PD act as expert, give expert testimony to the Board of Appeals, and an expert opinion as to what is appropriate under the circumstances. Because like you pointed out, you know, if you have 30 lanes in a range, it's going to be totally different than 3. You
Right.
know, it just depends on that particular case. So there is a high and necessary burden. I mean, it's a special exception, so it's a presumed right to it, but it's still an evidentiary proceeding. So it's a little
Right.
bit more harsher.
And again, I just want to reemphasize that the integral part that BAPD is playing is woven into the legislation precisely by that point, that, you
Correct.
know, you're not going to get to the Board of Appeals without having a thorough review by all the interested parties in town, preeminent among them, BAPD.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the applicant would put their case on, BAPD would put their expert testimony and review on it. To your point, Commissioner Rutledge, I mean, if we had an issue where a board member was like, I don't agree in Second Amendment, I'm anti-gun, I don't care if you're anti-gun. The question is whether or not the
Right.
facts meet the law. That's the question here. So it is a little bit different proceeding.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted to take out the jurisdiction for them to state the number of employees,
Correct.
because if a person didn't want to say out loud what they were feeling,
Yeah.
they could. And we're passing a law for future.
Sure,
For the
absolutely.
future.
No doubt
So-
about it.
And I'm
Yeah.
not impugning the character of the Board of Appeals. Actually, some might think it's a compliment. You know, I mean, that's how divided the nation is on this particular issue.
And I think the
And,
adult attendee was, we had another case where was planning commission where it was the trampoline park, and the guy just would not agree to have an adult over the age of 18 supervising up to, how many kids was it? 300 or something? It was like 300 kids. And we were like, an adult, right? Oh, well, there'll be somebody there. No, an adult. Like, there's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 23-year-old, you know? Exactly. We're not going to have a 15-year-old running a gun store or a
Right.
gun range. That's not going to happen.
Certainly not.
And I'm all in favor of this legislation, Commissioner Taylor. I mean, clearly I am. I just am, the mayor's pointed out really salient points here, and I'm just, doubling down on some of them.
Absolutely, and I was very happy with the product as it came in from the chief and from the Director Small, and I think that we've worked out reasonable amendments that can be taken up after the public hearing, and we'll see if we get more public comment on it. But I think that we have a good way of moving forward. Because really, what it sounds like is that both of the concerns are really rolled up into other things. The first concern is taking out a possible challenge under state law, which makes complete sense to me, and it's unlikely that the business practice, because anything regarding someone who's not permitted to carry a loaded firearm would of course be included in the safety plan. So too, in the detailed safety plan would be included. These are my folks that I'm going to have on the ground. These are their qualifications. This is why I trust them to supervise a range. They're not going to be a 16-year-old at the cash register. We might have, someone without experience at the cash register, but that's because their job is to count the money, not to supervise firearms. So I think all of that, can be handled. I don't think we need to legislate to the nth degree everything that they need to do. I think what we have in front of us is a reasonable and responsible set of guidelines that can be enforced under the expert hand of BAPD.
I had one question on the distance between schools, churches, and childcare. It says buildings. So if you have a situation where you put in there's a range, and it's more than 300 feet from one of those buildings, and then that school, church, or childcare wants to put an addition on, what happens? I mean, this gun range is preventing them from using the full extent of their property by being 300 feet away from a building, of which, 200 feet could be on that property.
Right. Typically, the restriction would fall upon the more intense use. So if you do have a church that does want to do an expansion, that I think that's something that would end up being taken into account, that yes, that brings them to within 300 feet of a nearby gun range, but they're not the adverse impact there. They should be able to go through the process, because a church is a permitted use. They'd be able to go through the process of getting that a variance to that relatively easily.
So just because
And that's the case on any
Because the gun
setbacks.
range was there first, and we're giving up on the 300-foot spacing. I mean, so, on the residential district, it's to the property line.
Right.
So why wouldn't we do this on the property line? Because now, if they want to build on, they're within maybe now 150 feet of a
If it's
gun
the
range.
desire of the
That's-
town board to do it property line to property line, then that would be how it's done. The reason that we went building to building was because there are we're an urban town. A lot of uses are on top of each other. So having that distance, actually, that had to get clarified many years ago. I think when Jurassic Golf went in next to Bel Air High School, because they were too close if you included property line to property. They were right on top of each other.
Right.
So it was changed to become building to building for that particular use. It doesn't mean it has to be for this one. This could be building to property line, as long as we specify what that is. But I do understand what you're saying, because we've had that in the past where anytime you put in, you're requiring the adjacent property to go through an extra step that they shouldn't need to do. But this is
And just because there's a business of that type there, they may or may not be able to do what they want to do on their property.
Right.
That was my,
Or they have to
Concern.
seek relief.
right, which you, again, like you said, is an extra step.
Right.
That actually would have to go through Board of Appeals?
That would go through Board of Appeals also.
Right.
Now, it is free of any accessory buildings. So if you have an accessory building, it's not an expansion, that's different. Accessory
Such as a
buildings are
shed.
excluded, yeah.
Or, right, okay.
Right.
Or a garage, a detached garage or something like that.
Correct.
That's my only concern.
So in summary, the building-to-building would give more properties the ability to use, to be an indoor gun range than
Yes.
property line would, just
Right.
because of how the town is.
Correct.
I'm good with the building-to-building, I think.
I am good with the building to building. I appreciate your concern, Commissioner Chismar, but because it's a use-based thing, I mean, same thing could happen where today that property's owned by somebody who's got, popsicle stand. And then tomorrow, now we're gonna pray at the popsicle stand, it's a church. And all of a sudden, the line, you got the same problem.
you have
You
the
got the
same
same problem. So I think it's a practical matter. The building restriction is probably sufficient.
And that really, to me, addresses, it's the distance, it's not the property line. It's the distance between the two
Right.
uses
No,
that
I
is the
agree. Yeah.
important thing under these circumstances, from
Yeah.
noise and there's other concerns.
Yeah,
So-
one of the things that has been done in other locations, we don't really do that here in Bel Air, but you can go front door to front door. So if somebody is expanding and that's not the front door, they're just, let's say it's a church and they're adding to their sanctuary, that wouldn't change the distance. So that may be something that we might be able to clarify in this case.
So I just have a procedural question, Commissioner Taylor, for you, is, so, where we are right now, procedurally on this, this is not the appropriate time to make amendments?
Certainly would be appropriate. I mean, if we feel comfortable with where we are now, the main motion before the body is on the reception of the ordinance. We haven't voted on that yet.
Right.
So we could certainly move to amend the underlying issue and approve those amendments and then move to accept. Or
Or we
to
can do it at-
receive, rather.
Right, or we can do it at
Or
the
we can
next
do it at the
meeting
next
when we
meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
either way.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know, how do you feel about that, Mayor?
I would defer to Commissioner Taylor since it's his, but, we might want to just hold it, receive it as is,
Right.
and then listen to the public comments and think about it for a little while, and then
Okay.
do all of our amendments as one.
I prefer to receive it clean so that the version that the public is looking at is the version the public is looking at. Anyone who's interested
Right.
in the issue will come in on the 19th, and then we'll have all the opportunity to make these amendments. It sounds like they're fairly simple. It just involves the deletion of two clauses, which we feel are better addressed either by other parts of the code or pre-existing restrictions. So
Okay.
we're not really, in my opinion, changing the substance too terribly much. We're just sort of
Fine tuning.
fine tuning, exactly. So I'd say receive it clean today, and
Okay,
we'll amend on the
I
19th.
appreciate the explanation, yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Ready to go, I think? No more
Ready.
discussion?
I'm ready.
All right, Mr. Krantz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For receipt of ordinance 84125, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Ordinance is received. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the acceptance of the fiscal year 2024 audit. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I move that the audit for fiscal year 2024, ending June 30, 2024, completed by SB and Company LLC, be accepted by the Board Town of Commissioners.
Thank you, Commissioner Rutledge. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor, and Ms. Moody.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The audit for fiscal year 2024 was another in a series of good audits for the town. It's the final year of a 3-year contract with the option for 2 additional years with SB and Company. The general fund excess of revenues over expenditures was $486,592, mainly due to receiving more in revenues and spending less than anticipated. There were no major internal control issues or deficiencies in the audit. The town continues to maintain a general fund unassigned fund balance, very healthy, totaling a little over $2,600,000, which is $43,317 less when compared to the end of fiscal year 2023. This was mainly due to the transfer debit of $100,549 to the stabilization reserve to meet policy. Other reserve transfers were $40,062 to the stormwater management reserve, which resulted in an ending balance of $341,559. We also transferred, like I mentioned earlier, $100,549 to the stabilization reserve, which has an ending balance of $1,547,866. We transferred $388,897 to the capital reserve with an ending balance of $4,873,918. We utilized $75,333 to pay for leave payouts, but we also transferred the same amount to the leave payout reserve, resulting in an ending balance of $300,000, and that's because that's the cap. According to policy, we cannot hold a balance any more than in the amount of any more than $300,000. Actual revenues were more than budgeted, again, in the general fund by $367,503. This was mainly due to receiving more in business corp taxes for about $36,000, state shared income taxes of a little more than $141,000, recognizing more of ARPA monies than we anticipated in the budget of $99,000. Red light camera revenues were higher than budget by about $29,000, and investment income was higher than budget by almost $40,000. Actual expenditures were also less than budgeted in the general fund by a net of $194,259. This resulted mainly from savings in general government of $104,000 and public works of $103,000. Of that total amount, gross savings in the 2 departments, approximately $89,000 was due to salary and benefit savings as a result of vacancies. $15,619 was savings in town buildings, both operating and capital. $26,153 savings in planning, again, both operating and capital. $10,452 savings in technology, but just operations. And $45,674 in unused stormwater management funds, which part of that was transferred to that stormwater management reserve. Moving to the parking fund, it did show a net loss in the amount of $112,600. However, that net loss was almost $31,000 less than we anticipated. So when we put the budget together, we anticipated a loss. It was just $31,000 less than what that anticipated loss. The sewer.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
When we say the loss was less, do we mean the loss itself was less, or we lost more money than we anticipated?
You lost less money.
We lost less money.
We were anticipating to lose more money
Okay,
in the
got
budget.
it,
and
got
we
it.
lost
So
less.
the parking fund lost 112, and we budgeted a loss of 143.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yep, there's a lot of L's in that. The sewer fund also showed a net loss in the amount of $330,214. This was all due to the Harford County sewer bulk rate being a lot more than what we anticipated when we put the budget together. On the flip side, the town's 3 fiduciary funds, so that's the civilian pension plan, the sworn officers pension plan, as well as the other post-employment benefit plan, all showed positive change in net position, which is basically retained earnings, of $1,324,000, $1,376,000, and $98,000, respectively, all due to positive investment gains. The audit report is available on the town's website. It was there last Thursday, I believe. I emailed you all copies as well. We do recommend that the board accept the fiscal year '24 audit. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I was going to do our discussion first. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment on this piece of business? No. And I neglected to ask if there was anyone here that wanted to comment on the indoor shooting range legislation. And we have no one here for either of those things. I know what you're here for, but we just want to make sure there's nothing else that you're here for. Just get it on the record that we asked. All right. Any questions for Ms. Moody about the fiscal year 2024 audit? All right. In that case, Mr. Krantz, we're ready for.
Okay, thank you for the acceptance of the fiscal year 2024 audit ending June 30th, 2024. Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
The audit is accepted. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission of Mr. Stephen Burdette. May I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the appointment of Stephen Burdette to the Bel Air Historic Preservation Commission for a term of 3 years, effective immediately, be approved by the Bel Air Board of Town Commissioners.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll second.
Thank you so much. Any discussion? Anyone
No, I-
here as a member of the public who wishes to comment on this appointment to the board? I didn't think so.
Madam Chair, if I could just, I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Did you want to comment on this? Okay, so,
Go ahead. I'll go, Mayor.
I have had feedback from multiple sources that this is an outstanding appointment, that the Historic Preservation Commission is going to be greatly benefited by Stephen Burdette, whose credentials are long and very excellent. And his expertise is going to be, I think, a great benefit. And I don't know that from my personal experience, but I've heard it from many, many sources, and I'm really pleased to see this and to support it. And thank him very much.
I'm thrilled that he's not only on one board for the town, but two, because he's also on the Bel Air Building Appeals Board. He was a commissioner, he was a mayor, he is a retired architect, he has served on the ECDC, so he and his wife, Mrs. Burdette, who also served as mayor and town commissioner for many years, both have been very involved in all sorts of town activities, and I'm thrilled that he's volunteered to be on this board. I think he's a terrific addition with his background.
He is. I served with Steve on the Historic Preservation Commission back in the 80s. I mean, he was, I think he was the chair for a while on that commission, and he knows it very well. He was there when we designated a lot of the properties in town and did the inventories for the book from Marilyn LaRue. So he would be, and like you said, he's an retired, I wouldn't say retired architect. So, and he has a passion for history and talking to him and knowing him over the years. So he comes highly recommended from my standpoint.
What a find. All right, we're ready to vote, I think.
For the appointment of Stephen Burdette to the Bel Air Historic Preservation Commission, Commissioner Rutledge,
Aye.
Commissioner Chismar,
Aye. Commissioner
Taylor,
Aye.
and Chair Edding.
Aye.
Welcome, Mr. Burdette, to the HPC.
All right, public announcements. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. To promote mental health and wellness, the Harford County Office on Mental Health, along with Harford County Public Schools and the Klein Family Center in Bel Air, are hosting the 4th annual Your Mind Matters, a family wellness night, on Friday, May 16th at Lados Field at Ripken Stadium. The event runs from 5:30 to 9 p.m. Admission is free, but advanced registration is required. Visit harfordmentalhealth.org to register. A reminder that the Town of Bel Air's annual Garden Mart will be Friday, May 9th from 8:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in the Bel Air Armory. Come shop for annuals, perennials, plus native plants to make your garden pollinator friendly. Visitors can purchase plants and get tips from members of 4 Harford County garden clubs, with the proceeds from plant sales going back to the Garden Club Scholarship and charitable donation programs. Visitors can also get tips from the Harford County Master Gardeners, learn about land preservation from the Harford Land Trust, and see library materials provided by representatives of the Bel Air and Edgewood Library branches. Admission is free, and many thanks to the volunteer members of the town's Appearance and Beautification Committee for their sponsorship for this event. The Icons exhibit, which celebrates how icons influence the lives and work of artists, opens on Wednesday, May 7th at the Harford Artist Gallery in Armory Marketplace. The exhibit runs through July 12th with an opening reception on May 17th. The gallery is open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Wednesday through Friday and from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. Visit artinharford.org or call 410-420-9499 for more information. The Bel Air Market, a seasonal open-air antiques and artisan market hosted by the Bel Air Downtown Alliance, begins its 2025 season on Sunday, May 11th, also Mother's Day. The market, which is typically held on the second Sunday of the month from May through October, is open from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the parking lot at 121 South Main Street in Bel Air, next to Das Beer Hall. Visit the Downtown Alliance website or their social media channels for more information. The Susquehanna Symphony Orchestra will perform its May concert, Across the Pond and Out of This World, on Saturday, May 17th at the Bel Air High School. Doors open at 6:45 p.m. and there will be a pre-concert talk at 7 p.m. The show starts at 7:30 p.m. Visit ssorchestra.org for a link to purchase tickets, which are $20 if purchased online in advance or $25 at the door. The third annual Bel Air Town Derby will be Sunday, May the 18th. Close to 30 young people will race their derby cars, all sponsored by local businesses and community organizations along Main Street. The races run from 8 a.m. to noon, and Main Street will be closed between 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. to allow time for event setup and breakdown. Many thanks to the Bel Air Lions and the Bel Air Downtown Alliance, which have been coordinating this event with the town, as well as the many sponsors and, of course, the drivers and their families. Admission is free, so come out and cheer on these young racers. The Historical Society of Harford County will host Revolutionary Harford, the shot heard round the world, at the Hayes House Museum on Sunday, May the 18th. The event begins at 1 p.m. Visitors will learn from local historians how people in Harford County reacted to the news that the American Revolution had started with the Battle of Lexington and Concord in Massachusetts on April 19, 1775. Admission is free and donations are appreciated. The Hayes House is at 324 North Kenmore Avenue near Bel Air High School. Visit harfordhistory.org for more information. The Board of Town Commissioners will host their final work sessions on the fiscal 2026 budget on May the 7th and Tuesday, May 13th, both at 4:30 p.m. here in Town Hall. Members of the public can give their comments on the budget during a public hearing before the Commissioners on Monday, May the 19th, starting at 7 p.m. in Town Hall. The Tree Committee will meet at 4:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 14th in the Bel Air Planning Department, 705 East Churchville Road. The Economic and Community Development Commission will meet at 5 p.m. on Thursday, May the 15th in the Bel Air Armory second floor conference room.
Community room.
Whoops, in the
Community room.
community room. Okay, so it's not in the Bel Air Armory second floor conference room. It will be in the community room next to the police station at Bel Air Town Hall. The next meeting of the Board of Commissioners will be at 7 p.m. Monday, May the 19th at Town Hall, where we will hopefully adopt the final budget. And the Town of Bel Air Economic Development Department is partnering with BG&E to host an information session for small businesses in the BGE service area interested in applying for the Energizing Small Business Grant opportunity. The workshop will take place on May the 13th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. in the Bel Air Community Room. To learn more or to register, call the Economic Development Department at 410-838-0584. Two other items that didn't quite make the list, but Saturday, May the 10th, which is this Saturday, from 8 to noon, there is a hazardous waste and shredding event run by Harford County. So you can take up to 4 boxes of paper that you now have cluttering in your house up to the landfill at 3139 Scarborough Road and have it shredded, and also get rid of all those household chemicals that are lying around. They take old fire extinguishers, which was news to me, and I have 2 from like 1978 that will be making the trip. They still read good, but I think I won't depend on them.
It's good you didn't have to use them.
It's good I didn't have to use them. They're still there. And on May the 16th, there's also Bike to Work Day, which is an annual event to encourage riding your bike to work or basically to anywhere. It will be from 7 to 8:30 a.m. at 220 South Main Street, which is the county office building. And it's a free event, but there will be food, prizes, music, vendors, and a bike parade. So come out to that. Did I miss anything? It was a long list of announcements. All right, public comments. And we have someone here who's been waiting patiently.
Here I am again.
And welcome again.
Thank you. John Stump, 523 East Broadway, Bel Air, Maryland. Chief Moore, my respects, sir. I'm here tonight to talk to you about, again, about the welfare of the community. I realize that this is off what we're doing tonight, but to speak on behalf of the individuals who make up what's commonly known as a thin blue line. Ladies and gentlemen, one additional police officer is not enough. Modern law enforcement requires officers to balance time-tested methods with innovative strategies and to address what's currently going on in Bel Air. Their jobs are not just to enforce law. It is to build trust, focusing on community relations and embodying the principles of justice and fairness. They are our guardians who run towards danger when others flee. They are our peacemakers, our heroes, who sacrifice their safety for ours. Every day, our officers put on their uniforms, not knowing what challenges they might face. They are often the first to arrive when there is an incident or a tragedy, and the last to leave. Their sacrifices are weight of responsibility they carry. They are the foundation of the town's stability. The Bel Air Police Department is not an after-the-fact organization, but they continue to strive to be a before-the-fact organization. We owe them a debt of gratitude that we can never repay. May we always appreciate and not take for granted, I'll repeat that, not take for granted the peace and safety we enjoy today because of that thin blue line. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember, it takes approximately 10 months to train a recruit to be ready for the street. And in the next 5 years, you can expect that we will lose a number of police officers due to retirements or for other reasons. More police officers on the street will reduce overtime, which we have a budget of an overtime. Supporting modern police organizations require ongoing financial commitment. I say again, crime prevention is not cheap. It has never been cheap, and it will never be cheap. What is the price that we must pay for the visible deterrent to crime? On April 7th and on April 21st, I asked you, will you wait or will you act? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stump. And we know who you are, but if you could state your name and address for the record, I think we neglected to do that.
John Stump, 523 East Broadway, Bel Air, Maryland.
Thank you. All right. And is there anyone else here that wishes to make a public comment? If not, all right. Commissioners' comments.
I wanted to remark on the occasion of last Thursday, Law Day in Harford County. It was a pleasure to join both the mayor and Commissioner Rutledge for commemorating that holiday. I'm just reminded of the importance of the rule of law in our Republican form of government and how easy it is without strong law for tyranny, either by one or by many, by king or by mob, what have you. We've seen throughout human history the tale of tyranny woven its way, how easy it is without rule of law for that to take hold, and something that we do different in the United States, the American experiment, Our great national founding was on the bedrock of that rule of law, and we are lucky to live in a country and a community that honors that constitutional heritage. And we're lucky to have men and women who put their lives on the line to honor that constitutional heritage. And we're lucky to have leadership that values those bedrocks. And so it was a wonderful day of celebration of the rule of law and of our Republican form of government. And it's always nice to have that right in the heart of downtown Bel Air. There are many times when we find ourselves complaining a little bit that Bel Air is the seat of government on that big blue map that the mayor always talks about, but there are just as many reasons to remark on how lucky we are to live in this truly remarkable community and truly remarkable country.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Any other commissioners' comments?
Madam Chair, yes. I just wanted to point out that I've requested for make sure I'm requesting the right people to assist with this. I would like to have my short-term rentals bill, be able to be on the agenda somewhere with the Planning Commission. I think it's June 5th meeting is what I saw on the calendar. Was that, Director Small, what you were thinking?
That would be fine with me.
And then the ECDC, June 12th, is that possible?
We already have that planned for the agenda.
Thank you very, very much.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that. And I did want just to thank the staff for the hard work throughout the budget process, and just to comment that all the presentations have been excellent, and the detail that is provided in the justifications for everything so far. So as we plow through with our long meetings and the work sessions, I wanted to thank everyone for that, and for Director Moody for the excellent, really, report on the audit. And you took a lot of information and put it in a really understandable way, and much of it very good news. And so I thank you for your work on that as well.
Okay, my comment is a shout out to the Bel Air Police Department for the very fine work on the fraud, shoplifting at the Best Buy. And also shout out to the Best Buy people that they were on top of it
Yes.
and contacted you so you could get there in time to get 2 out of the 3. And the third one, I am confident Bel Air PD will get that one too.
Yes, we will. Maybe
So-
we already have some good information coming for that one, so,
All right, congratulations
Yep.
on that.
thank you, ma'am.
And to First Class Officer Nick Rhodes, who was involved. Although it's always a team effort, but they're doing great work.
Teamwork makes the dream work. right? There
Absolutely.
we go.
Absolutely. Any more commissioners' comments? All right, in that case, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have a move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.